Hi, hello. So, so a couple of days ago, I have uploaded a video showing a kernel panic right after I installed the Ubuntu, and so the first reboot, kernel panics. So here is a panic. Oops. So here is a panic. Stop. Right? So you can see here, if you can see the screen, here it started to run the slash init process. Then it's got a general protection fault, like some kind of memory protection fault. And so here it says CPU 11 process ID process ID 0, yeah, and the command is swiper. Uh, so then the next line is hardware that shows the hardware platform, and then here is the RIP, the instruction where it's where the kernel panic. It shows a switch memory IRQs off, switch memory IRQs off, like a interrupt off. Yeah, so that's the kernel panic error message, and then there's a call trace with like maybe a secondary startup on a secondary CPU, something like that, and then do the idle process, schedule the idle, and then kernel panicked. So how do I solve this problem, right? So I kind of suspect this is maybe a hardware problem, because I do have some. This is an old computer, old server. So when I power on the computer, it does have some memory test failed to pass. So I have to unplug some of the memory. Uh, so then the memory test passed during the BIOS, the firmware self test, and but still, since I can installation the Ubuntu file, I'm not 100% if this is a hardware, or maybe is it a memory problem or is it a CPU problem. So I think since right now, since now the chat GPT is very popular, right? So let's ask what chat GPT think about this kind of problem. So let's open our chat GPT. So this is a chat GPT, and this is I already asked my question with this kernel panic rip 0010 switch IRQS off, right? So here is the chat GPT answer. A kernel panic is a type of error that occurs in the Linux kernel when it encounters a problem that it cannot recover from. So here is the useful information. This switch IRQs off message you are seeing is part of the panic message that provides information about the specific point in the kernel where the error occurred. So here it is. The ChatGPT explains the switch IRQs off refers to a function in the kernel that is responsible for disabling interrupts during a context switch, which is a process of switching from one process or thread to another. This function is called when the kernel is transitioning from one context to another. And if it encounters an error while executing, it can trigger a kernel panic. So I did not dig into the kernel source code to check what this function is, but I guess ChatGPT is probably right to explain that this kernel function. And so here, so again, following there are many possible causes of kernel panic, including hardware issues. So that's interesting, right? The first thing it mentioned is including hardware issues, driver problems, or software bugs. To diagnose the problem, you may need to review system logs, analyze kernel crash dumps, or use debugging tool to identify the root cause. So, but since this is the first reboot and the kernel panicked, I couldn't use this view the system logs, analyze the kernel crash dumps, and what ChatGPT confirmed with me that the hardware issues, that because I already have some previous memory issue, so this is a confirmation for my suspicion. And yeah, so it's quite useful, right? And so now let's do the same search in the Google, in the search engine. And here's the Google search result. The first one is someone actually has a similar, the same, this is same kernel functions, panic. And but if I read it's nothing related to my problem, my suspicion. So not very useful. Yeah. So there are more here, but yeah, not very helpful for me to troubleshoot the problem. Okay. So from this perspective, the ChatGPT seems better. So then I followed this my suspicion and the ChatGPT suspicion with hardware issues. I opened up the server. So here is my server. I have two CPU here. So this, as I mentioned earlier, I previously have some memory problem. If I plug all the memory back in, and the memory test would fail, right? So I had to unplug some memory, and I only left like one memory here, and then I also have one memory here. Okay, so first I tried to unplug this CPU. Then the system wouldn't start up, so I have to put it back. Then I unplugged this CPU. You can see from the picture here, this is a CPU, and this is the CPU. I unplugged from here, and I also unplugged the memory that plugged in here. And then I power on the machine, and the Ubuntu booted fine, booted okay. So this confirms that maybe this CPU has problem, right? And yeah, so that's quite an interesting troubleshooting experience with the assistance of ChatGPT. So I guess ChatGPT is that is productive, and maybe at some situation can help us uh, uh, to be more efficient, to be more productive, and yeah, that's what I want share my experience with this kernel panic and the chat GPT. Yeah, thank you for watching.